Boom, that's it. I
Ooh,
see it.
we are live. This is another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 9. There goes the neighborhood. So
That's it.
I'm going to give a description of Young and the Dead from the creator himself. Young and the Dead is a homage to all great kid-centric ventures films of the 80s. Films like The Goonies, Monster Squad, Explorers, and ET The Extra-Terrestrial, to name a few. Think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. Young and the Dead combines 80s nostalgia, adventure, humor, horror, mystery, and danger, and throws in a healthy helping of zombies. You all remember the zombie apocalypse of the 80s, right? There will be thrills, chills, and guts will spill. Mostly zombie guts.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, such a fun book that's still mood centric, which I really dug because
Mm-hmm.
we talked a lot about how Junji Ito set the mood for particularly Uzumaki,
Yeah.
but Scott Serkland did the same thing with this book. Like, it's a different book. Like, we're back in American horror now, but I dig it. Like, I can't wait to like really start talking about it. But before I do, I just want to say, like,
Hello,
it's
Christopher.
hey Chris,
Frank.
Frank, welcome.
Yep.
Fallbreaker Studios is in the comments too. What's up, Fallbreaker Studios?
Yep.
But
And just starting off, I'm Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics. You can find me here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my friend co-host Fogbreaker Studios, Jason Alexander. His link is in the description of Instagram, and the creator of this is Scott Serkland. All of his links are there to where you could buy a copy of the book, his YouTube channel, and Instagram.
pick up the book, y'all. It's really good, and you're
Yeah.
supporting like a good dude who does a lot of good for our community. Like,
Exactly.
I'm so giddy just to be able to like review one of Scott's books, because when I started, I think I said this last week too, but when I started in comics, man, it was like finding YouTube videos to watch. Like, it was always refreshing to see somebody that was closer to my age that was doing videos. Marshall Lee, Scott Serkland, and Mark Crilly were like, I used to listen to all three of those guys on my way to work. I would watch them when I would start drawing, and like, it's such a privilege to be able to review one of Scott's books.
Yeah.
And separate of that, it's a really good story. Like, it really is. Super clean artwork, but we'll get into all that as we go through it. But I don't know, you want to kick us off to that this week, man? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like he was saying, and just a description, like if you really dig like 80s nostalgia in a horror comic, this definitely has it. I mean, let alone it's one of those things that if you could look and see how like one kid is wearing an Atari shirt, and you have references to like My Pet Monster, but it's designed in the way that Scott could do it, so that way it's not copyright infringement.
right.
And just he did a really good job to like literally create a universe within his comics, because I mean, if you're going to have like so many issues, you want to create a type of universe, and he does a good job at it.
He does great. You get introduced to a family, like, you understand that the stepdad is not awesome. You understand that like his sister is the typical 80s babe. Like,
Yeah.
she's like the Kelly Bundy of the book. Like, even like down to the kid who wears the polo shirt. Like, that's a very 80s polo shirt. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I never saw Goonies until it was already a cult classic when I saw it.
The Goonies, yeah.
I was mostly an adult, but it's like a lot of stuff like I was telling you before, like, you could set an 80s soundtrack to this book. Like,
Oh yeah.
It feels like Karate Kid in certain parts, but it also feels like like all those other like 80s movies, War Games.
Oh yeah.
Red Dawn, like all those where
Yeah.
you just got these, these kids, And the cool thing is, it's like in real life, kids, you see a kid's book and you think, okay, Teen Titans Go like kitty.
Mhm.
But that's not how kids are. Like kids
No, of
get
course
together,
not.
kids curse, kids read like things that they maybe shouldn't read.
Which we'll
And
get
it's
into
like,
that.
yeah, he nailed
Yeah.
all of that. Like this is
Mhm.
like not bad kids, but it's just like typical 80s kids that you would see. You could find like this formula on any show, but Scott nailed it like
Mhm.
as good as anything. Like it's 80s Americana in a comic.
And I'm just going to bring up the first page, because the first page, I'm a sucker for scenery, especially because, you know, as an artist, it's important to have.
It's so clean, man. I'll show it while you're talking about it. Oops, where did I go? Oh, you got
I'm
it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's see if I got it. There you go. Yeah. Just look at that. It's like you could tell he literally took the time. I'm gonna make it bigger. He literally took the time to make sure that every single house was designed differently with different layers of windows, and you know, just another great artist who knows how to take black and gray and white and make it really amazing looking.
This page is so clean, and it's like there's a few details that are just awesome. Like you nailed one that I noticed too, with just how different the houses are. There's one house with a fence. All the rest of these houses that are almost in a row, they all look different. But what's cool about this is, even though it's like I'm 40 now, but looking at this, like you have to remember that there was a time where you could have these big plots of land that didn't have a lot of houses on them. And so for him to like think about that part and think about the details, like, man, like that's serious business. Because I whenever I do go back to my hometown, because I grew up in a suburb. When I go back now, I haven't been back in a while. The first thing that I always noticed is how everywhere where there was land, there's now a housing development.
Oh, of course.
I remember a time when it wasn't like that. And obviously Scott did too, because he remembered, like, yes, you have these houses that are in these optimal locations, but then there's these huge pieces of land that haven't yet been developed.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's thoughtful. And it's one more thing that can connect you to a page, which keeps you on that page longer, which leads to you turning to the next page.
And just going back to it, like, let me bring it back up. What I really like from a writer's perspective is that you literally see, like down here with the smaller thing, is like literally they're at his house now, but before he just have a giant panel shot. Instead of showing like the kids literally walking there, you have all this dialogue there to like give you that perspective that, okay, they're walking all the way down to his house, and this is the conversation that would probably take 5 or 10 minutes before they reach the house. So
if you were
really
sitting on your
layout,
if you were sitting on your porch watching these kids walk home, this is as much of their conversation as you would hear.
Yeah.
It's just, kids talking about the same old things that kids always talk about. Oh, Christopher, I grew up in North Carolina. I grew up outside of Charlotte. But I'm glad I am where I am, because it's not hot all the time. And it's cool,
unlike here in Florida.
That's it. I couldn't get out of the South.
But I'm not even originally from Florida. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So, there you go. So just with the beginning, like we get to a point now where he's at his house, his friend's in there, and what's one of the things that they're doing as a kid? They're reading Playboy, because let's face it, like you said, it's literally one of those things that a lot of kids that are teenagers do at that point.
Right.
But they made it seem like, they're going through all the toys. Like, you want to bring up that page?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah. Like
So yeah,
literally, they're going through all the toys, and then the friend's like, "Hey, I got this from my old man," and it's literally a Playboy. Yeah,
so the comics, and then boom,
right.
find a Playboy.
Because
You know,
that's what teenagers do. It's like,
right,
especially if they know that their old man has a stash hidden. It's like, I know where it is. I'm gonna take it and look at it before he returns. So
right, right. And what's he gonna do? He's gonna confront you about it and have to expose his own stash,
right.
right? You know,
And what's
but
even
no, it's just
and what's even funny is the dialogue, because at one point, like when they're talking about it, the 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 one that's living in the house, his mother just recently got married, and literally the friend is like asking him, "Hey, what is it? I have to find it. Dude, your stepsister's a total babe. So
yeah,
have
that's
you ever
right.
seen her naked? Ew, no. What? It's not like you're blood related. If she was my stepsister," while he's holding out his tongue, I'm like, how many people really thought that at one point? It's like, okay, she's not my sister by blood, and everything is just really funny.
I remember my friends having crushes on my sisters, and it was always the most annoying thing ever. But it's just
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like he nails like the '80s formula like, down
Yeah,
to
exactly.
like as it goes on through the story, and it's like you start to, they familiarize with
Hmm.
Stephanie Morales, who's like a girl that's around their age um, that one of the kids has a crush on, and then you get introduced to the stepdad, and the stepdad is like the typical '80s jerk ball. He's no, it don't stop. Oh man,
Yeah.
so
But yeah,
it
it just the
it's just
the dialogue too, dweeb. I mean, who really says dweeb anymore?
yeah, all the stuff is just like spot on
Hmm.
to the era. Like
Yeah.
the mechanic stepdad who's,
Hmm.
kind of losery,
Yeah, exactly.
he's
Where
super
it's like, he like, I got to bring up that panel shot, because at this point, like literally the friend and the other friend are playing upstairs making noise, and you have the stepfather who's literally pulling like a double shift, and he's like, "Stop making all this noise. It's time for dinner." And this panel I just really like, because he did a really great job showing like people sitting down at the table having dinner.
I
Just
was just gonna talk about that page because early on you always hear like you can't put so many panels on a page. It's always like
Mhm.
between 7 and 9. There's
Yeah,
13 panels on this page,
yeah.
and it works because you can
There's no
hear.
dialogue.
No, there's no dialogue, and it again it goes to something that I always like. It's nothing that I'll open a comic book and look for, but
Mhm.
there should be these moments of normalcy that again make what makes this book feel like what makes you identify with this book.
Yeah.
And it's like just the sound of the butter knife and the fork
Mhm.
hitting the plate and the sound of people drinking. Again, it's '80s. You got a whole family at a table
Yeah.
and nobody's talking. And
Yeah.
all you hear is the sound of eating until finally, like, one of the kids will ask to be excused from dinner.
And he just
That's
does, and like you
that's it.
said, he just does a great job, because you have the noise of the plate being like making noise from the knife and the fork, and you have the older brother like looking at the stepfather, and the stepfather just looking back at him, and
Yeah.
everyone just taking food. It literally plays out in a way on, like, you don't want to make comics be too much like a movie, but this is a really great scene that if you were going to try to take a movie concept and make it into a comic, this probably be the best way to do it, and he did a really good job.
As crazy as it sounds, like this page to me, this page is like the glue of the story, because this is not a family that's waiting to be turned into superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a family after school eating dinner, but only having family time because that's what they're supposed to do. Like, dinner is like an hourglass, and it's like once dinner starts, the hourglass flips over. Once somebody finishes with their food, that's the end. It's like one person has to be excused, and then everybody spreads out. And it's just this page just really spoke to me, and it's like, I know I get wordy about stuff like that, but
no, because it's one of those things. It's like me and you both grew up during that time period where you didn't have phones, and this is the thing that you expect for a family to do, and it becomes, and now everyone has like a phone in their face, and a lot of families have their phone in their face, especially when they're out having dinner, and it's like, where's that family connection and nostalgic feeling? And it's like looking at a comic that's like ancient, because it pretty much like shows times were more simpler, and it wasn't about being your face stuck to a phone. So he did a good job at that.
Yeah, it's and then the next page, like, people will never know what it's like to have that kitchen phone with the super long cord, and that was like however long the cord was how you got privacy on your phone calls. So he's trying to call his biological father, who works at a university, and at this point you don't really know much about him.
And he does a good like, I don't want to show too much because this isn't free, and I want to be able to have people buy the comic.
This is a fun book to read. And
but just like after he's excused from the table, there's just so much like feelings and like great dialogue there to show what it's like for a family who just went through two parents divorcing, and now the mother remarried, and you basically are expected to call this guy dad. And how many times you have that cliche 80s where usually the guy that the mother marries is a jerk, while the father is like a cool, laid back guy that the mother just like, oh, you don't take anything seriously, and I do all the like parenting, and you're just trying to like be their buddy. So
exactly. And again, so he's trying to call him, and there's no real information because he can't leave a message. But then you see, like, on the last panel, just to go back to like the nostalgia feature of this book, there's a Thundercats poster behind the kid's head, and it's like Thundercats was it for me, man.
Oh, exactly.
Awesome. Like, I didn't get to.
There wasn't a lot of superhero characters with red hair, so
you were a Lino fan.
Right, exactly.
It's like we wasn't allowed to watch He-Man, but we were allowed to watch Thundercats.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool cartoon. Like, it was a team. They were like the X-Men. They were just it was like medieval until it's like all that snarf stuff started. I never really cared for snarf. Like, that just kind of seemed silly to me. But because again, it was like this book was so serious, or this story was so serious, and then they kind of tried to like make it give it a little bit more like kid appeal, and it just threw it off. And that's what, again, just kind of piggybacking on that, there's real aspects to like tension of like real family life in Scott's book, which it's not always nice, but it makes for a hell of a story. He nailed it, like from the next page where you got all of his comic books, and like he reads some cool comics. You know what I mean?
And literally at one point, like, I guess like you could get away with it, and he actually is playing with some Star Wars figures. He's playing with the actual TLE. I believe that's the plane the ship of the actual like enemy ship, and then he was playing with like Rubik's cube and doing artwork. Literally toys that you would see during that time period.
Yeah, like he's got a TIE fighter and an X-wing. He's doing art. He's got a tank, and then he's playing. It looks like Pitfall.
Yeah, on Atari. I played Pitfall. Pitfall was the shit back in the day.
I played it once, but I sucked at it, and I was like, nope.
I don't have a Pitfall T-shirt, but I got a Pac-Man T-shirt, and I love Pac-Man.
Oh, do you? Nice.
Yeah,
my brother was good at Pac-Man. I was serviceable, but I never played it. I was never I never killed the levels in that game. I was no Billy Mitchell for sure. Yes. Snarf episodes were the worst. 100%. Exactly. There's not much room for discussion on that. If I saw Snarf in real life, Sarah McLachlan would be able to put me on a commercial as like the worst person because I would get some field goal practice in on a Snarf 100%.
I got to bring up this page just because I like the fictional character that he created. And if anyone's out there who watches like 80s horror,
Vincent right Price,
here, it's like Midnight Theater with Victor Pratt. That is Vincent Price. No other. Just the look and just reading this comic, I'm just trying to picture this guy talking in Vincent Price voice, like, welcome to Midnight Theater. I'm your host, Victor Pratt. This evening, we are spin a yarn of unspeakable terror, a tale most horrifying in which the dead rise to walk among the living. Just I'm like, I can't do his voice, but I mean, just picturing how Victor talked back in the day would be just great to have that.
Man, yeah, it was even on this screen, it gives you something else to look at with his cigarette in his hand, just that billowing smoke with the candles in the back, that's comic books are awesome. Comic books are awesome, and people who make good comic books should all be awesome. And this is an awesome book, man.
And after you say, I gotta say the next thing that I really like. Okay, at this point, he's watched a lot of TV. He's played video games. He's looking at a War of the Worlds book by H.G. Wells, and then all of a sudden a news alert comes on. Basically, this is Channel 9, and they're talking about some strange outbreak. And instead of just the TV cutting off, he literally drew the panels where they have the artwork and then black squares, indicating that he's trying to stay awake to see what it is, and his eyes are just getting heavier to the point where he just can't keep them up anymore. And it's just a really great concept to just get that idea. Is how many of us are trying to watch TV at night because something great came on and we're just starting to fall asleep, and he captured that in a great way in this comic.
He got off 6 black panels, and it made total sense. But going into those other panels, what I loved is after the panel that says "End of Days," his eyes barely open, and you can kind of see outside.
What's up, Mike?
And then his eyes close, and then it's the flag is on TV, and it's that was when TV was signing off.
Yeah.
And then his eyes open again, and it's static. And then it's okay, there's nothing keeping him awake.
And then there's a please stand by commercial. Stand by.
Yeah.
When was the last time anyone seen a please stand by when the channel wouldn't work properly?
Yeah, man. It was the worst thing to wake up to.
Yeah.
I remember being 19, and we still had a channel that would go off the air at 3 or 4 in the morning, because there was this time where I watched Blair Witch Project. I went to the movies and watched it. And because I wasn't yet used to like real horror. I had snuck and watched it, which probably was bothering my conscience anyway. But
Yeah.
it was scary. Like it was scary to me. And I remember I used to stay awake and I used to say, okay, I got to be asleep by the time Ricky Lake goes off because I knew the TV was going to go off air, but I couldn't fall asleep. And it's like you would wake up and then it would be that off air and like it was jarring because that beat, like,
yeah,
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. And it's just like, that's all it is. So no, it's just like, but no, it's like, this is when the story, like, this is when you go from familiarizing yourself with the characters to like that next, like this is when it hits the second gear and it go like it ramps, like it's 0 to 60.
And I'm gonna share the page because at this point, the older brother Sam is going downstairs to pretty much ask his mom, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And then this happens. She's a zombie.
Yeah, and she says,
and he did a great job. He did a great job creating this zombie. Like you could see like the flesh like deteriorating and the slobber coming out, just really great stuff. And you know, trying to keep it PG-13, but you know, he's not like, okay, you know, there's gonna be some cleavage there. And later on, you just see the stepfather literally have his brain exposed, like right here. Just really great stuff.
And he's still salty, like even as a zombie, his stepfather is still a snot.
But man, he just did a great job with the zombie designs, and not just that, but like this panel right here, where he's like trying to attack the younger brother, and the younger brother's afraid, and then just trying to get away. Just really great panel setup and panel progression. Like you literally see the chase scene going on in this.
You gotta love it, man. It's like, it's not easy to do this. Like, it goes right back to like, I don't know if you've gotten there yet. No, it's the next page.
Yeah.
Where it goes back into like where you saw this big clean suburb neighborhood before. It's like now you get to look at it instead of from away from the houses. You're in the neighborhood, but now this neighborhood is overrun with zombies. It's
a beautiful shot.
Clean. It's clean, y'all. Like this artwork it's for black and white. It gives you. It's different than Ito's, but it still accomplishes it the same way. It's not supposed to feel like that because it's a different book. Calder, what's going on, man? I don't like third place in trivia, so I'm coming back. So, but no, just as a quick aside, and not really as a plug, but kinda, Alexander Calder does trivia on Facebook.
Yeah.
Every Sunday night.
This guy right here.
Yeah. So look him up. It's Trivia Night by Alex, I think it is. It's Trivia Night by Alex. I can never remember if it's with Alex or by Alex. But look him up on Facebook. Like anybody can get it. Like there's a solid crowd of trivia people. Yeah. I like to think that I kind of operate in that upper section of like quality trivia opponents on Sunday nights. So
yeah, I gotta try to do it again because my first time I ranked pretty good for my first time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, check him out if you ever get a chance. If you don't have anything to do on a Sunday night, 8:00, check him out for trivia. He kills it. But no, back to the book, man. This is it goes to basically this guy's now trying to get his little brother safe, and
this is why I came up with the title, There Goes the Neighborhood, because literally at this point, zombies are destroying the whole town.
Yep.
And you're like, what the hell happened at this point? Because it's like literally the mom, and it seems like all the adults are affected at this point, and kids aren't being affected.
Yep.
And just really great stuff. And at this point, the brothers are trying to get away, and the other friend shows up, and they're trying to ride on their bikes. And then all of a sudden, nowhere, you have a new character named Lloyd. And Lloyd is like one of those like 80s like almost like nerdish kids who played Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm not gonna lie, I played Dungeons and Dragons,
I
but
want
he
to play Dungeons and
but he
Dragons.
literally created Thor's hammer in the workshop, and just he comes up with Thor's hammer and knocks the zombie across the head, knocking out the zombie. And just I'm gonna bring up the shot because it's just another great shot on like he captured like the gore, but in a great way.
It's just he knew that he had a few more liberties
Mhm.
doing this book in black and white. Like I would love to see this book in color because it's just like the artwork is so good that
Like
you
you see that
always want to see it. You always
literally
want it to enhance a little bit more.
the hammer smacked the zombie, and you have the eyeball literally flying out of the socket.
Zinging right out like
Hmm.
cheesy, crazy bread.
And this is where like the Goonies part comes in, because you're having these different kids with the different personalities. And I don't know why, but at the same time, it reminded me of like the old 80s Burger King's Kids Club characters.
Yeah.
Like you saw at the like the with the TMNT video where they're trying to
Yep.
steal the burger. But yeah, just and the dialogue. He does such great dialogue. Your gratitude, although appreciated, is unnecessary, Samwise. It is my sworn duty as a warrior and friend. Now go and seek shelter. Like I could
But
picture him like talking like that.
but you always had that one kid that was reading The Hobbit
Hmm.
back then, and it was like it was their shit. Like I
Hmm.
didn't read The Hobbit as a kid. You know,
Yeah.
I became familiar with Lord of the Rings through the movies, but I do remember a few kids in school that always had a copy of The Hobbit with them, and it was like you would have that character in this story because
Hmm.
this character would exist in a group of, if you have more than 5 kids in a room, there are certain personalities that always show up.
Of
Like there was
course. I mean,
always the Star
even
Wars kid. There's
even
always
at
the Star
work,
Trek kid. Yeah, exactly.
even at work, most people are always asking me about like movies or comics related stuff, and I'm like, I'm literally that kid right there, but as an adult,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know. And now at this point, literally they left and they're going to his old house where he used to have a tree house, and
Yep.
there is his crush, the girl that he talked about in the beginning of the book, where literally the friend is like, your secret crush is like in our tree house and everything. Isn't that weird that she's living in the house that you used to be in? And at this point, literally the older brother, you kind of seen what it was. He almost had like this tough like guy that had like a teenager that works out, has the bandana his head around his head, hair spiky, something that you would kind of see like those like almost like those jocks, or kind of reminds me of like the Karate Kid, because he's like the tough brother and he probably knows and loves to fight.
I was gonna say he's kind of like the older brother is kind of like this melding of Danny LaRusso and Johnny, like just
Mhm.
occupying the same body, like they did a fusion dance. But again, like these are like classic 80s
Mhm.
characters,
Yeah.
like easy to
He
get
took the time
comfortable
to
with.
make he literally took the time to like, okay, these are the personalities and these were the cliques that were in high school, and I'm going to make a character based off of each like stereotype that was pretty much in the 80s. And he nailed it.
Yeah, he did. He killed it because it's just like somebody tells you you're making chocolate chip cookies. They may not taste like Chips Ahoy, but you're
Mhm.
going to get a chocolate chip cookie, and that is worth the price of admission. And so, with this book, Scott Serkland took it and said, "This is 80s pie." And once you knew it was 80s pie, it was just a matter of you saying, "Okay, I'm bought in." So it's like this is the first story. You don't need to know a lot about these individual
Mhm.
characters because you're bought into getting to know them while the
Yeah.
story is going on. You don't need
Yeah.
a bunch of background because the recipe is all there.
And if you go to his website where you buy the book, literally, he does a good job at like introducing these characters. And like I said, I don't want to show too much because I want you guys to go out there and buy his book, because this guy, like we said in the beginning of the show, he is a comic book creator, indie creator just like us. But him on YouTube, he creates like 100 days of making comics. I mean, not 100 days, Comics 101. That's what it is. Comics 101. And with Comics 101, it's like a college course where literally he does every step, like from the writing to story layout to like panel progression, just really great work.
Right. And it's his time. And those videos are good to watch. And because he's so descriptive, it worked great for me because Comics 101, like I listened to it a lot while I was working, and like through like most of the beginning part of it. And it was all good enough information to listen to and absorb. And then if you needed to go back and watch something, you could. Yeah, Making Comics 101 was a great series, but he's got so many videos before that. Like I learned how to make stickers at home watching Scott Sterkland videos. I bought the stuff that he bought as far as the Avery label paper, the chemical label paper, man. It makes great stickers. I don't like sugar cookies, so I don't want to talk about it. So it was Scott Sterkland's good. This book is awesome. Check out circworks.com. That's his website. You can get all of this stuff there. He even does practice pages that you can get sent to your email, like to practice different things. And he's somebody worth getting to know. If you want to know how, we do certain things as comic creators, he's a good voice, because I'm not a teacher. Scott Sterkland does a really, really good job with teaching the behind the scenes stuff. But this book at this point, like this is a good little interlude. But at this point, this book takes another like heavy shift when the scientist shows up in the treehouse and he's looking for William Young. And he's like, "That's my dad," and he's like, "Well, I've been bitten, and there is a way to correct this, and tell him I'm sorry." And then he hung himself.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it coming up from a mile away, because you still get like in the groove of this being a PG-13 book.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy hung himself
like he's at this point, it's like, okay, I'm just going to hang myself and in my life before I become one of these things.
Right.
And like I said, buy the book, because that end shot where literally the zombies are like looking up at the body and you see the design of the treehouse, beautiful shot. And just can't say enough. I mean, he did a good job for his first issue, and with the issues going on, you could see how he literally took more time and his skills have progressed with the story.
And here's the thing, like one of the like technical rules is like, make sure that on the page that turns, you make sure that person don't put a bookmark in it. And like this whole book is a good page turner, but he saved his last panel for you having to read issue 2, because if you made it this far, you can't help but to be fully invested. There's nothing about this that would make you say, okay.
He wanted to leave a cliffhanger, and he
nailed it. He nailed it. And it's like, it's just so good, because there's so much dialogue on certain pages, but on other, sometimes whole pages with a lot of panels, he let his artwork speak for itself.
And even with the panels, they're not like traditional sizes. Like literally, he designed them to look like very different. And that's what a comic book artist needs to do, is just like find ways to think out of the box, because right here, I'm going to bring up this one, and it's just really great. Like literally you see him gathering, like showing the paperworks and the pictures, and you have like these ones right here that are rectangle, and then you just see the rope, and then you see the rope design there's just showing that it's like bunching because he's falling forward, and then you have the feet dangling at like a crooked angle. Great concept, and just proves that you don't have to have your panel shots to be the same. Like, think out of the box, break them up in a way, think about ways where you could literally have like a circle panel almost in a way, just to give that extra, like, whoa, I want to read more.
Yeah, what would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Like I said, it's like you hear hard and fast, and it's something that I try to break myself out of a lot. Is if everybody says if you're not a professional, you shouldn't have more than 7 panels on a page.
Yes.
Okay. And I understand it. But at the same time, if you want to have more panels and more panels serve your purpose than 7 panels on a page, put more than 7 panels on a page.
Yeah.
Because if your story is good and you're telling it to the best, and you're telling it in the best way that it can possibly be told, nobody's going to count your panels except to give you a compliment.
Yeah.
And if that, it's just it's a good book, y'all, and it's not a good book because we dig Scott Serkland. It's a good book because, once again, if the comic that you want to make doesn't exist, you can make it.
Yeah,
you can just make it.
And just reading this comic just goes back to this thing that we've been talking about with Scott, with his videos. He gives so much detail. And then when you read Young and the Dead, it's like he's just not blowing air out. Literally, you could read this comic and it's like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. So if the comic's this good, if you're a person who wants to get into comics and know how to do comics, he's definitely one of those people that you need to watch his videos and subscribe. Right.
Yeah, you see that the proof is in the pudding because he does his stuff. Like, he tells his story. Like, this is a zombie apocalypse. There's not one page or one panel that I looked at and I said, well, I would do this, or I would do that, because he knows exactly where he wants to be with his story, and for
him, like, to put like the reference, the Goonies meets The Walking Dead, that's like a perfect example there, because like I said, you have all these different kids with their own personalities, and then you have the zombies. It's not like Uzumaki, where it's like very gory and very nasty looking, like as a like slime and blood and guts, but basically it's a way how like the Goonies had like some elements in there. It's like, wow, this movie is like almost on par that it shouldn't be allowed for kids. Like with this comic, you see flesh going on, you see the kids like reading the Playboy. He literally captured it where this is like definitely for teenagers, and it's not like a Goosebump book that younger kids should pick up.
Yeah,
so anyone who wants to like give their kid this book to read, unless they're a teenager, don't give it to your little kid.
No, not unless you want to answer a lot of questions that you ain't gonna want to answer. But no, it's like it's got I don't know if this book was before it or not, but it does have, it's the same vibe that you get watching Stranger Things.
This came out before Stranger Things.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, it definitely has a Stranger Things element to it.
Yeah, there's a vibe. Like, I grew up in malls, you know what I mean? Like, we always walked around the mall and stuff. And it was like, there were parts of Stranger Things where you were like, I know I've been in a mall that's just like this before. And there was, the main character's sister, or his stepsister, she's dressed just like Madonna in 1987.
Yeah.
And it's just like everything about this book screams period piece. Just like if you were reading a book that's set in medieval times, or if you were reading a book that was set in the Old West, the 80s is a period, and it's more of a period than the 2000s, because I mean, there's so much going on now, like you can't really pinpoint things, but in the 60s and 70s and 80s, you can pinpoint visually where you are. And 80s is near and dear to me because, you know, I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 1980. So by 87, I was starting to pick up on what my world looked like. Yeah. And it was like, apparently, you know, Scott Serkland lived in the same time period that I did, because there are things that you can read about and there are things that you have to experience to convey. Relate to. Yeah. And he done it. And exactly, it makes it relatable. You know, it's like, you know, when my kids talk about the 90s because we watch Family Matters. Yeah. It's different hearing that from a 10-year-old who was born in 2010. When, you know, I grew up and I understand why Urkel was Urkel. I understand why Eddie was Eddie. You know what I mean? So it's like, you just, it's different. And it's like, you can, another 90s quote, just like the old Diet Pepsi ads with Ray Charles. Yeah. You know, you got the right one, baby. Like, this does it. Like, because it's just like,
or even with the California raisins.
Oh man, my mom had so many California raisin figurines. I bet she still has them. And it's like singing Marvin Gaye to the Sun-Made Raisin Lady. That was it. And then they got TV shows, like from those commercials. They got TV shows and holiday specials. You know, it's like such a wild time, man. But you didn't grow up in the 80s, man. You missed out. Like, this is why there's so much chaos now, because people made some cool shit out of some shit that shouldn't have been real cool, but it happened. You know, Swatch watches and jelly bracelets.
So I didn't ask, do you want to rate this now or do you want to rate it towards the end?
We can rate each. We can rate it now. I mean, we're at 49 minutes now.
Gotcha.
So I would rate this issue an 8 out of 10. I'll rate each issue as we go. It's an 8 out of 10.
It's an 8 out of 10 for me.
And that's a super compliment. It's much more than 80% good. Yeah. But the artwork is good. It's this super clean, unique style. I like the heavy black lines because it reminds me of Disney and it reminds me of Attack on Titan. Yeah. Two stories that I like, two styles of art that I really, really dig. And as a writer, this story is very, very well written. He establishes his mood well. It's not just a collection of pictures that look cool. You want to turn the page, and because it's set in such a cool period of time, you want to look at everything. You look in the background to see what you can recognize, because you know, this could have been something that you had in your house. You know, so it's 8 out of 10 all day long. It's an awesome issue. Great first issue to any story. Like, this is how you make people want to read your book.
And with me, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 as well, just because the artwork is great. It sets up a lot of panel shots and different angles that, as an artist, like I always say, you need more than just a bunch of bobbleheads. You need to set especially if you're going to do multiple issues, you need to create a universe and show what's going on in that universe. And with him having it be in an 80s time period, you know, you need to do your research and have, like, you know, you don't have to have complete dialogue, but have like some like catchphrases or some sayings that you used to have in there, like spaz or, you know, babe, anything like that, you know, that you really don't hear a lot of people say anymore.
Right.
And
dweeb.
Yeah, dweeb, exactly. Like, I haven't heard the last time someone calls someone a dweeb or a spaz, but yeah, just great stuff. The zombies look really great. yes, it's not like in a like extreme horror, but it still has that horror element where like if you saw this zombie,
I
you
have
don't
been
want to.
called a Frank before. I have been
Yeah,
called a nerd before, Frank, plenty of times. That
yeah,
would never really stop.
mhm, yeah, and you definitely don't want to see that zombie,
Nope.
walking down the hallway or whatever. And yeah, just great stuff. Stop listening to us. Go to his website where the link is.
Yes,
And if I'm not
search.com.
mistaken, like if I don't know if he has any more physical copies, but I know for like the digital copy, you could get like it really cheap and have it downloaded on your computer or your phone and then just read it right now directly after the show. You will not be disappointed. And we just can't talk enough about how great it is
Yeah, it's a good book.
because there's just so much that you could talk about it as a writer and as an artist.
Yeah, and again, just to kind of go along with what you're saying, like especially if you're somebody who's trying to decide if they want to do a comic, this is a good comic to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're somebody who grew up in the time period that we did, it's a really cool nostalgia piece. Like if you like those George Romero horror movies, and you like the Goonies, and you like Walking Dead, or you like Gremlins, or you like any of those 80s C. Thomas Howell movies,
Yeah.
you'll enjoy this book. Hands down. It has appeal. Like there's a lot of times you read horror books and you're like, okay, well, everybody's not gonna like this. Like even like Uzumaki, that book might be too much for some people.
Yeah.
But if you want like a fun horror story where you can smile with a jump scare, check out The Young and the Dead. Like it's a solid book, guys. Like it really, really is. A lot of nostalgia, but just a good story because all the stuff is just stuff if the story's not good.
Yeah.
Even for me, I even include artwork in that. Cool artwork is cool artwork if there's no story. But when you can have a story with that, now you got something.
Yeah.
And this book has something. So no, I totally enjoyed it. 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5, however you want to scale it. This is a good ass book.
Yep.
And I can't wait to do issue 2 next week.
Yep. So next week, everyone who's new or old, it's going to be same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. Come along for issue 2 of Young and the Dead. And again, I'm Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics. Find me on all platforms like that. And Fogbreaker Studios, Jason Alexander.
Studios, baby. Oh, Christopher C. There is not only a wooden TV in the book, but it looks like a 19-inch, and it's got the clicky knobs. So now go get the book.
Yep.
So,
all right. See y'all next week.
Y'all
Bye.
be good. Take care.